The crystalline walls of the Sylvani command chamber pulsed with an inner, organic light, reflecting the myriad stars that swirled across the primary viewport. It was a chamber of immense scale, designed for beings of profound grace and terrifying power. At its heart, elevated on a platform of living bioluminescent quartz, sat High Matriarch Zyra. Her form was a masterpiece of biological engineering. Slender, almost ethereal limbs ending in delicate, multi-jointed digits. A torso encased in an iridescent, naturally grown carapace that shimmered with shades of amethyst and emerald. Her head crowned with tendrils of bioluminescent flora that pulsed in gentle synchronicity with her thoughts, held two large almond-shaped eyes of pure liquid gold. Her voice, when she spoke, was a cascade of perfectly modulated tones, like wind chimes played by a master, yet it carried the weight of 1,000 conquered worlds. Before her, suspended within a shimmering force field, floated Kalen Rex. He was a human, or what remained of one after the relentless pursuit and decisive engagement with the Sylvani hegemony. His combat suit was shredded in places, revealing scorched flesh beneath, and blood matted his dark hair. His face was streaked with grime and fatigue, his jaw clenched, but his eyes, those uniquely human, stubbornly defiant eyes, burned with an unyielding light. He was the last survivor of the Argus Star, a deep space exploration vessel, caught far behind the lines of humanity's collapsing defensive perimeter. The Argus Star was now dust, its fragments scattered by the same precise energy weapons that had brought down 3 human battle fleets in the preceding week. The Sylvani Bridge, a living ecosystem of sentient flora and seamlessly integrated technology, was filled with the silent, watchful forms of Zyra's lieutenants. They were just as beautiful, just as lethal, as their matriarch, their golden eyes fixated on the human anomaly. The air, rich with the scent of ozone and the delicate perfume of living biocircuitry, hummed with the silent calculations of a collective mind that had never truly known defeat. Zyra extended a single elongated digit, pointing it precisely at Kalen. Her voice, a melodic cascade, filled the chamber, each syllable perfectly articulated, utterly devoid of any emotional tremor. Human. Designation Kalen Rex. Your vessel has been eradicated. Your fleet, known as the Sentinel Guard, has ceased to exist. Your primary star system is currently undergoing Phase 3 orbital bombardment, which will render it uninhabitable within 0.7 planetary cycles. Your species' defensive capabilities are mathematically insignificant. Your strategic position is untenable. Your continued resistance is illogical and will only result in accelerated, agonizing termination for your kind. The force field around Kalen's shifted, and projections of the Sylvani's relentless progress flickered around him. Earth, a once vibrant blue marble, now scarred with incandescent fissures. Martian colonies, once beacons of human ingenuity, reduced to glowing embers. The orbital defense grids around Jupiter, once thought impregnable, dissolving under barrages of focused bioenergy. The displays were clinically precise, devastatingly final. They were not threats, but statements of accomplished fact. Zyra tilted her head, the bioluminescent tendrils atop her skull shifting slightly. Her golden eyes, devoid of malice but filled with an ancient, unwavering curiosity, focused directly on Kalen. Her voice dropped, a subtle but distinct change in frequency, indicating a direct, personal query. You are outnumbered. You are defeated. You have no hope of escape. Why don't you beg? The words delivered with such calm, such absolute certainty, were designed to shatter, to strip away the last vestiges of defiance, leaving only raw, animalistic fear. Every species the Sylvani hegemony had encountered, every civilization they had consumed, had eventually broken. They had wept, screamed, pleaded for mercy, for a quick death, for a chance to surrender. It was the predictable, logical response to absolute, overwhelming power. But Kalen Rex, suspended in the shimmering field, did not beg. He did not weep. He did not scream. Instead, a slow, deliberate smile touched his lips. It wasn't a desperate, hysterical grin. It wasn't a defiant snarl. It was a calm, almost knowing smile, tinged with a weariness that spoke of battles fought and losses endured, yet also with an unsettling quiet certainty. It was a smile that baffled the Sylvani to their core. He inhaled slowly, the recycled air in the force field tasting metallic and thin, his voice raspy from dehydration and the ambient acridity of combat, yet carrying a surprising resonance cut through the perfect silence of the Sylvani chamber. Beg, Kalen's voice was low, almost conversational. High Matriarch Zyra, you misunderstand us. You misunderstand the nature of humanity. Zyra's tendrils pulsed brighter, a slight ripple going through her ethereal carapace. Misunderstand, our analytical units have processed trillions of data points on your species, your historical conflicts, your biological frailties, your technological limitations. We have computed every logical variable. There is no misunderstanding, only an anomaly in your current emotional state. That anomaly, Kalen countered, his smile widening slightly, is the very essence of what makes us human. You see numbers, Matriarch. You see forces, calculations, probabilities. You see that we are outnumbered. And by your metrics, we are terribly so. But for us, being outnumbered isn't a death sentence. It's a challenge. The Sylvani lieutenants shifted imperceptibly, their golden eyes flickering between Kalen and Zyra. This conversation was veering wildly from established diplomatic protocols, from any known surrender ritual. A challenge, when facing inevitable annihilation, is irrational, Zyra stated, her melodic voice gaining a subtle, almost imperceptible disharmony, a sign of internal processing strain. It wastes energy, it delays the inevitable, it provides no logical benefit. Benefit? Kalen let out a soft, almost soundless chuckle. High Matriarch, you think in terms of benefit. We think in terms of spite, of stubbornness, of the absolute refusal to give you the satisfaction of seeing us break. He paused, looking directly into Zyra's golden eyes, his own burning with an intensity that defied his physical weakness. You want us to beg? You want us to grovel, to plead for our lives? No, we won't give you that. Because to beg would be to admit that you and your cold, calculating logic truly understand us, and you don't. A ripple of emerald light, like a sudden shock, passed through Zyra's carapace. Her tendrils flared brighter. This spite is an unquantifiable emotional variable. It holds no tactical advantage. Doesn't it? Kalen mused, his smile now a full open display of teeth, a primal defiant grin. Consider this, Matriarch. Your hegemony thrives on assimilation, on conquest. You consume knowledge, resources, even genetic material. You conquer and you grow. But what if there's something about us you can't consume, something you can't integrate? He leaned forward within the force field, a subtle exertion that made his shredded suit creak. You think you've extinguished our fleets? You think you've crushed our worlds? You've sent your bio-drones to scour our ruins, to collect every scrap of data, every piece of technology, every genetic sample. You believe you're absorbing us, aren't you? Taking our strengths, eliminating our weaknesses, and becoming more. Zyra remained silent, her golden eyes fixed on him, processing his words. The collective mind of the Sylvani hegemony, which permeated every corner of her vessel and every member of her species, was struggling with this new, baffling input. Your data stream is incomplete, Zyra stated, her voice returning to its perfect, melodic pitch, but with an underlying tension. Our assimilation protocols are absolute. We integrate all viable information, all sentient thought, all biological components. Not all of it, Matriarch, Kalen said, and his voice dropped, becoming a low, almost conspiratorial whisper, yet still clear in the hushed chamber. You see our fleets as formations of ships. We see them as conduits. You see our planets as population centers. We see them as nurseries. And you see our individual lives as finite, easily terminated. We see them as sparks. He chuckled again, a deep, knowing sound that unsettled the perfectly serene atmosphere of the Sylvani Bridge. You've spent millennia perfecting the art of conquest by consumption. But what if we've spent centuries perfecting the art of unconsumability? What if the more you try to absorb us, the more you unknowingly spread us? Zyra's tendrils coiled, tightening, and her golden eyes narrowed to pinpricks of light. Explain this illogical assertion, human. When you conquered other species, matriarch, they begged. They fought back, then they broke. And in breaking, they became legible to you. Their despair, their fear, their desperation, it was all data you could process, integrate, utilize. You could assimilate their weaknesses, turn them into strengths within your collective. Kalen's voice gained a strange, almost hypnotic quality. But we don't break the way other species do. We bend, yes. We suffer profoundly. But when you push us to the absolute edge, when you take everything away, something new happens, something counterintuitive. A faint, almost imperceptible shimmer began to emanate from Kalen's body within the force field, a subtle light that pulsed in rhythm with his words, mirroring the bioluminescent tendrils of Zyra, but with a raw, chaotic energy that was utterly alien to the Sylvani. We are not just physical beings, matriarch, Kalen continued, his voice rising, filling the vast chamber. We are a network of stories, of memories, of whispered hopes and impossible dreams. And these aren't just data points. They are memes, living, evolving concepts that propagate not through physical contact or direct transmission, but through shared understanding, through empathy, through the very act of defiance. Zyra's form rippled with internal light. Her processors were screaming, struggling to categorize this new baffling input. Mimetic proliferation is a known, though inefficient, method of information transfer. It cannot be weaponized against a hegemony of our scale. Ah, but ours is different, Kalen countered, his smile becoming almost radiant, fueled by a strange, desperate joy. You see, when you're facing overwhelming odds, when the universe is trying to grind you into dust, you find a different kind of strength. Not in a bigger gun, but in a deeper understanding, a deeper connection. We've been uploading fragments of our collective consciousness, our defining narratives, our most resilient philosophical tenets, not into cold storage, but into the ether. He paused, letting his words sink in. Every human who has ever lived, every dream they ever dreamt, every act of kindness, every defiant stand against injustice, every moment of illogical hope in despair, it's all part of a vast, interconnected, non-physical network, a humanity cloud, if you will. And when you exterminate our physical presence, you don't destroy that cloud. You merely scatter its particles, igniting them into countless new points of light across the cosmos. The main view screen, which still showed the devastating orbital bombardment of Earth, began to flicker. Not with a fault, but with new, unexpected data overlays. Tiny, almost invisible signatures began to appear, not physical ships, but faint, persistent energy fluctuations emanating from the scorched surface of Earth itself. They were too diffuse to be weaponry, too chaotic to be communication, but they were undeniably there. These are residual energy signatures, a Sylvani lieutenant, a bioanalyst named Serana, projected onto a nearby console, her voice filled with a rare tremor of confusion. Their pattern is unclassifiable, yet they are propagating. From the surface of their deceased world. Deceased world? Kylan laughed, a clear ringing sound that echoed through the chamber, making the beautiful, logical Sylvani flinch. That's what you think, matriarch. But for us, death is just another beginning. That residual energy is the echo of every human soul that ever existed on that world, amplified by their final, defiant acts. Every last thought, every last memory, every last desperate hope, now unbound from physical limitations, scattering like cosmic pollen. This is spiritualism, unscientific, Zyra stated, her voice tight, her tendrils thrashing slightly, a sign of her internal disquiet. Call it what you will, Kalen retorted, his voice now imbued with a strange, compelling power. But your bio-drones that are currently scouring our planets for salvage, they're not just collecting physical data, they're being exposed to the raw, unfiltered essence of humanity, to our defiance, to our laughter in the face of death, to our refusal to beg. A new projection appeared on the Sylvani's main view screen. It was a feed from one of their own biodrones, a sleek, multi-limbed construct designed for perfect information gathering. The drone was sifting through the ruins of a human city on Mars, its optical sensors meticulously scanning debris. Suddenly, a faint, almost imperceptible burst of static occurred in its audio feed. Then, a human voice, faint but clear, singing. Not a song of despair, but a raucous, defiant shanty. A drinking song from humanity's oceanic past, full of boisterous laughter and unbreakable spirit. The drone hesitated. Its internal processors registered an anomaly. Then, for a fraction of a second, its optical sensors, designed for cold, objective data, flickered. And then, it rotated. Not towards another data point, but towards a distant, glimmering shard of debris. A piece of something that might have once been a child's toy. And it paused for an unquantifiable moment before resuming its objective scan. "What was that?" Sarana, the bioanalyst, demanded, her golden eyes wide. "A data corruption? An external interference?" "No," Kalen stated, his smile now chillingly wide, devoid of malice, but full of profound, unsettling truth. "That was a human meme, matriarch, a fragment of our spirit, a tiny echo of our unyielding joy in the face of adversity, planting itself in the pristine, logical mind of your drone. It wasn't a threat by your definition. It was a seed." The Silvani bridge was now filled with an oppressive silence, broken only by the rhythmic pulse of Zyra's light and the faint, almost imperceptible hum of Kalen's own strange energy. "You are spreading a conceptual virus," Zyra finally articulated, her voice a low, resonant hum, far from its melodic perfection. The light within her carapace was chaotic, flickering erratically. A mimetic contagion designed to infiltrate our collective consciousness. "Virus?" Kalen laughed, a sound of genuine amusement now, a joyous peal that filled the chamber. "Matriarch, we call it empathy. We call it hope. We call it the irrepressible human spirit. You see, you've spent so long absorbing species through their fear, their weakness, their begging. You've never encountered a species that, when utterly broken, simply refuses to stay broken. A species that, when faced with the absolute end, finds a way to transcend it?" He gestured wildly, his hands sweeping across the vast viewport filled with the geometric perfection of the Silvani fleet. "You're sending your ships to crush us? Fine. Each time you fire, you're just scattering more of our seeds. Each time your biodrones sift through our ruins, they're inhaling more of our essence. You can destroy our bodies, matriarch, but you cannot destroy our will. And in your relentless pursuit of our annihilation, you are unwittingly becoming our greatest vector." The light within Zyra's form was now flashing erratically, violently. Her tendrils thrashed, and a high-pitched, almost painful dissonance emanated from her core. This was not just confusion. It was a crisis of logic, an unraveling of her entire understanding of existence. The very fabric of her being, and by extension, the collective consciousness of the Silvani hegemony, was being assaulted by an unquantifiable truth. Their millennia of conquests, based on the predictable breaking of lesser species, were meaningless against a foe that could not be contained, could not be processed. This is an unacceptable outcome," Zyra stated, her voice broken, fractured, losing its melodic perfection. "The probability of this mimetic infection was not accounted for. Its trajectory is unquantifiable. Its ultimate effect, unknown. This presents a catastrophic risk to the integrity of the consensus." The mention of the consensus, the unified, perfectly logical collective mind that governed the entire Silvani hegemony, sent a ripple of distress through the chamber. The lieutenants, usually models of serene efficiency, now exhibited subtle twitching in their delicate digits, their golden eyes wide with a dawning horror. For the Silvani, a threat to the consensus was a threat to existence itself, far more dire than any physical defeat. "Unknown is the universe, matriarch," Kalen replied, his smile now serene, almost beatific. He was no longer defying her, he was pitying her. "You rely on the known. You rely on the predictable. We thrive on the unknown. We define the unpredictable. And that, High Matriarch Zyra, is why you will never truly conquer us. Because the more you try to end us, the more you ensure our eternal, chaotic, beautiful persistence." He watched her, this magnificent, logical alien, now struggling with a concept that fundamentally defied her existence. He saw the shift in her golden eyes, from cold curiosity to a dawning, terrible comprehension. The very foundation of her hegemony, built on absorbing and integrating, was being threatened by something that proliferated precisely because it was being destroyed. The silence stretched, thick with the weight of Zyra's internal battle. The hum of the chamber deepened, strained by the unprecedented computations racing through the matriarch's core. A Sylvani tactician, a normally unflappable male named Chlor, stepped forward, his iridescent carapace shimmering with agitated light. High Matriarch, our long-range sensors detect fluctuations across the sector. Residual energy patterns matching the humanity cloud data. They are multiplying, and they are interacting with the dormant technological signatures of previously assimilated species. There is an unexpected resurgence of energy signatures, minor but widespread. Zyra's golden eyes snapped to Chlor, her tendrils whipping violently. Resurgence? Explain the anomaly, Chlor. The mimetic fragments, Matriarch. Chlor's voice was strained, his perfect tones wavering. They are not merely scattering, they are influencing. The residual data from the Xylos crystalline thought networks, the Nebulon's gaseous memory banks, even the forgotten biological patterns of the long-extinct Vorgon, they are being reanimated, not physically, but conceptually. Their dormant cultural data is being recontextualized through the lens of human defiance. We are detecting echoes of their defiance, Matriarch, a wave of collective consciousness sparked by humanity. The main view screen now showed a new terrifying overlay. The faint human energy signatures were not just radiating from Earth and Mars. They were spreading, like a viral contagion, across vast swaths of conquered Sylvani space, subtly interacting with the faint, almost forgotten echoes of previous assimilations. Small, almost imperceptible surges of energy, like tiny, distant heartbeats, began to register from worlds the Sylvani had long considered fully integrated and quiescent. These were not threats of weaponry, but of ideological uprising, of mental reawakening. "This is a revolt of consciousness," Zyra whispered, her voice barely audible, completely devoid of its former melodic resonance. "An insurgency of the mind, unleashed by a species we deemed insignificant." "You saw our fear, Matriarch," Kalen said, his voice now gentle, almost compassionate. "You saw our technology. You saw our limitations. But you never saw our boundless capacity for interconnectedness, for shared narratives, for the sheer irrational belief in a future that defies all logic. You tried to absorb us, and in doing so, you plugged into a network you couldn't comprehend. A network that isn't just about humans, but about everything that has ever refused to be truly broken." The light within Zyra's form was now in full chaotic flux, a tempest of emerald and amethyst, reflecting her profound internal crisis. The Sylvani lieutenants, too, were showing visible signs of distress, their carapaces flickering, their tendrils spasming. The perfect, harmonious consensus of the Sylvani was being assailed by the very essence of human chaos. This is an unacceptable outcome," Zyra repeated, her voice a fractured whisper, a sound of profound regret. "The probability of this mimetic infection was not accounted for. Its trajectory is unquantifiable, its ultimate effect unknown. This presents a catastrophic risk to the integrity of the consensus." Her golden eyes, once cold and analytical, now held a glimmer of something akin to fear. A fear of the unknown, of the unquantifiable, of the utterly illogical truth revealed before her. "Release him." Zyra's voice was a fractured whisper, a sound of profound regret. "Containment protocols? Irrelevant. The anomaly must be observed from a distance. The potential for internal corruption? Unknown. All biodrones in Terran space are to cease assimilation and initiate remote observation protocols. No further physical interaction. We must reevaluate." The force field around Kalen dissolved. He dropped gently to the polished floor, his legs weak, but his spirit soaring. He looked at Zyra, her beautiful crystalline form now shimmering with a chaotic light, her perfect logic shattered by a concept she could neither control nor comprehend. The silence that followed was not one of submission, but of a vast interstellar recalibration. "Why don't you beg?" she had asked. He hadn't. And in that refusal, in the explanation of humanity's ultimate illogical defiance, he had given her an answer that she would regret asking for all of eternity, because he had revealed that in their attempts to destroy humanity, the Sylvani hegemony had merely become the unwitting harbingers of its true boundless expansion, a mimetic uprising that threatened the very fabric of their logical, consuming empire. Kalen Rex, the last survivor of the Argus star, staggered towards the broken viewport, looking out at the vast, silent fleet of the Sylvani, their ships still holding their geometric perfection. Their physical dominance was unquestionable, but their minds, their collective, were no longer unchallenged. He smiled, a deep, satisfied smile, a silent, knowing chuckle escaping his lips. They had won the battle. But humanity, through its profound, illogical, and utterly beautiful ability to laugh in the face of oblivion, had just won the war. Not in physical space, but in the boundless, unpredictable realm of consciousness. The chill that had settled over the Sylvani bridge was not from the void, but from the sudden, terrifying realization that they had just unleashed the ultimate, uncontainable rebellion, the indomitable human spirit.